to update it, but have left it available. In a moment, I'm going to look at our lesson plans, and I'm going to be referencing this Exploring Career Options workbook. So again, that's our Quick Starts page with quick starts for all of our resources, workbooks for the Career Zone, and there's this one-page resource overview that is the same as the resource overview we posted as a resource for this workshop. The relatively newer element of a resource is our what we call the Career and College Readiness lesson plans. So several years ago, we were able to develop a series of 45 lessons that are spread across grades 5 through 12, with the idea being that it's a way to help you use our resources with students. So many of the lessons relate to the websites that I'm going to be overviewing in a moment. But they also introduce students to national resources like the Occupational Outlook Handbook or Career One Stop, and they're all intended to help students engage in that journey of looking at who am I in relation to the world of work, where am I going in terms of an occupation that makes sense to me, how do I get there in terms of what education and training is required, and then what skills do I need, really looking at those transferable or employability skills. And so the lessons kind of cycle through those answering those questions with a little more focus on lower grades at the beginning lessons and more emphasis on creating a post-secondary plan in the later lessons. All of these lessons are posted as both a PDF and a doc. And the reason we post them as a doc is we know that there's a wide variety of educators who are making use of these lessons in all possible settings. And so since we can't know every one of your unique settings, we post them as Word docs so that you can modify them. You can pull a handout out if you care to, or just use them in whatever way makes sense to you in your setting. All of the handouts are embedded within the lessons, but also available on their own as both an English handout and Spanish handouts. We're finishing up a kind of a revision of all of these lesson plans. Some of them have been without Spanish handouts for a bit, but by early in the next year, all of the lessons will have been modified at least a little bit, and all of the Spanish handouts will be available. To get started using these lesson plans and get the sense of what they're about, I'd actually recommend 2 new lessons that we added at the beginning of the pandemic. As we created these earlier lessons, we kind of had in mind a classroom setting where lessons would be introduced and then students could engage in the work either in a computer lab or a classroom or as homework. But as we moved to distance learning and remote learning, we got going on creating lessons. We have more in the works, but right now we have 2 lessons that we've made available to support distance learning. We have one lesson that's focused on having an offline activity. So that lesson makes use of the Exploring Career Options workbook I just showed you a moment ago. It has all of the information that you need to implement a lesson, as all of our lessons do. But where I think for us, as we looked at distance learning lessons, and the difference between these new lessons and the older ones is there's more in the way of a student learning packet that a student could be given and then work through on their own, assuming less opportunity for interaction that you might have in a classroom. So that's really been the big difference for us between one of our standard lessons and a distance learning lesson. The other lesson that's available, called Matching Interests and Careers, makes use of online access and an activity. So it's going to make use of the California Career Zone, which we'll be looking at in a few minutes. Again, gives you all the information you need to engage students in using the Career Zone, and gives the students everything they need in a packet to help them navigate the details of the lesson. So, and then you can also just see there's some related resources, educator guide with some background on the lessons. This overview is just a brief statement about each of the lessons. So you have a sense of what the theme is and what resource it uses. There's a glossary and just a variety of other information to get you going. So those really are the two things I want to highlight on our home website. So I don't know if there are any particular questions came up about either the quick starts or the lesson plans. Do you have anything, Esteban?
At the
You're
moment,
muted.
I don't see questions. Just a reminder for those of you that kind of came in after the announcements, just please submit your questions through the Whova Q&As because it's been disabled here in the Zoom app.
Yeah, good reminder. Yeah, so do feel free to submit questions. So that, again, that was an overview of our home website for the California Career Resource Network that is oriented towards you as educator to support you in making use of all of our other resources with your students. Next, I want to take a look at the first of our student-facing resources. So the California Career Center was created at the request of many to develop some kind of a virtual counselor. So this is available as a resource for students. There's two really big chunks of the lesson, of the website. One is a lot of content to help students as they navigate kind of that middle and then more emphasis on high school options and opportunities, various ways to explore career options and look at various kinds of career paths, information about how to get a job. Education and training looks at all of the post-secondary options, maybe just to show you as a sample page. And so all of those content pages are set up as index pages. Education and training looks at all of the post-secondary options that could be available to young people. We appreciate that college is a fabulous opportunity. We also are very aware that it is not the path for all young people. And so our hope is that all of your students, when they leave high school, will have some idea of all post-secondary options they could pursue. They'd understand how to pursue a college education, whether it's 2-year or 4-year. They'd understand how to pursue a military career or spend some time on something like AmeriCorps. So that's really what this section is all about. We've also got a section of content looking at your students who may face challenges. You may have students who are migrant families or LGBT students, and so we've got resources for them, and then a bit on financial literacy. So this is all of the content section of the site, but students can also set up a free account. So two of our website, well, actually, all 3 student websites have student accounts. These accounts can be set up by students whenever. We will never close their account. They're welcome to set up the account, you know, beginning at age 13 as they work with you on this work and working online. They can keep them into young adulthood. You're actually welcome to share these resources with any young adults. Community college students could make use of them. I think that's part of our audience today. I'm sorry if I default to my K-12 focus at the Department of Ed, but know that we've got both K-12 and community college folks. So anyone really is welcome to use these sites to set up an account. Within that account, when they set it up, they'll tell us why they're looking at the account. And then when they sign in, the site will suggest pages to them if they're interested in joining the military or going to college, creating a high school plan. Well, that's under Explore, but content toward them. They can create a basic high school plan beginning in middle school. We're going to come back and look at this career action plan. Job Central is a related resource for creating resumes and business letters. They can highlight, they can upload. If they don't have an online portfolio, they could actually use the Career Center, this document section. They can upload really an unlimited number of documents. There's a 2 megabyte limit for each document, but at this point, no limit for how many documents they might want to unload. This is where an educator can create a lesson within the site and share it with students, and then students can manage their account. So just to give you a quick look, an easy way to begin using this site and have students engage in using an account is to have them create a career action plan. So a career action plan is our post-secondary plan. And basically the site gives them all of the information they would need even on their own to navigate through creating a career action plan. So we have them explore occupations by looking at interests. And Esteban, I see some people in the waiting room. And we have them look at a budget that matches their lifestyle thinking, choose an occupation to research, look at what the requirements are for entering that occupation. We actually make use of the Occupational Outlook Handbook. Then where can they get education and training requirement, thinking about related experiences they've had, experiences they can still have, who can support them in implementing this plan, steps they can take to get started, plan B, and then resources they've used. So a student, either hopefully with your support and therefore your need to sign in, set up your own account and explore the plan, they can edit as often as they want, download it as a Word doc as often as they want to revise their personalized version, or it can be downloaded as a PDF. Recommend the Word version because then they can kind of personalize it. There may be elements that the PDF would implement that they don't think they need. So they're able to do that and share that with you. So this would be an easy way for a student, well, not easy, take some work and some thought, but a way that a student could begin making use of the California Career Center.
So John, we do have a question
okay.
in the chat. Is there a way to have students connected to their counselors so that counselors can see what students have completed in their account?
That is an awesome question. And by the end of the school year, yes. This site, when we launched it, there's an educator element, but it's just for creating lessons. But we made an investment this year. So there's going to be, and we think it'll sit right here. We're actually beginning work. We work with San Joaquin County Office of Ed. They're creating a student dashboard. So a student would be able to share anything that they've created from within the site, as well as the Job Central site. So if they've created a correction plan or a resume or a business letter, they'll be able to share that with a counselor or teacher. Great question. That's come up a lot before, and that's why we finally were able to get some resources together to make that available. And when it launches, I should say, and I'll mention again, I do have an email list that when we update resources, launch new resources, have information to share, I send out an email. I try to do that very sparingly because I know we all get too many emails. And if you're interested in being added to that email list, there's actually, you can either do it from our home site or just email me at jmerris, Jmerris, at cde.ca.gov. Mentioning that now because when the student dashboard launches, we will send out a notice so that you'll know that it's available. Right now, the only way for them to share is to download the correction plan and send it to you. Is that the only question? Great. Okay. So I'm sorry it's not available right now, but it will be, and we will definitely we definitely have dived into it, and so anticipated it being hopefully available early spring and then ongoing into the future. So that's the California Career Center and the student account that's available. The next, and this is actually our newest. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm zipping along too fast. So the Career Center student account correction plan actually has a related mobile app. There's a link in the Career Center to all of our mobile apps. And so I'm going to just jump on that page quickly. And so the way this would work is for the correction plan, a student could choose to only have this online account, and this online one does have much deeper directions to how to create a correction plan, but they could also set up either independently or jointly this My Stuff CAP for correction plan mobile app. And if they use the same account login information, then they could work on their correction plan on their phone. It would automatically update on the website. So wherever they do the work, it would be revised in both of those places. So again, they can either do a correction plan via mobile app or online. I think sharing wise, that student dashboard, this year we won't have a mobile app dashboard, just within the website. They'll be able to share that work. The next website we're going to look at is Job Central. So you can see here that also has a related app. The Career Center My Stuff account and the Job Central account actually are separate accounts. They can use the same login information, but because of the features and the programming behind the sites, that's why they require a separate account login and account setup. But once they've got it set up, then they can just leave it logged in. I used to worry a little bit about that, but as I realized that young people are managing, many social media accounts, adding a couple more to help them figure out their work life maybe shouldn't be too much of a challenge. So anyway, they can set up those mobile apps. So the next student-facing site, and again, our newest one, it actually also just had an update, is this My Stuff Job Central, within which they can create a resume, a master job application, as well as 4 kind of job search-oriented letters. So there's a template for an informational interview request. There's a template for a cover letter to apply for a job, template for asking someone to submit a reference, and then a thank you letter. So those are all easy to make use of. This year, they'll be added to the mobile app. Right now, the mobile app is just going to be the resume and the master job application. And for those of you who haven't created one before, a master job application is simply a full work history of experiences, jobs, courses taken, anything that a young person might be asked to submit, share on a job application. We actually developed this site prior to COVID, so I had in mind that a young person might be wandering down the street with their phone in their pocket and see a wanted ad in the window of McDonald's or wherever, and they could apply right then. That could still happen, maybe in the hopefully not too far off future, but still the idea here is that a student could upload all of their work-related history. The job application and the resume were created really with high school students in mind. So we don't ask them or expect them to have a super deep work history or college degrees or military history. So what we've done in the site is provide prompts and tips and clues for how a young person might fill out a resume. You can see here, this is just the beginning page. They have the option of only submitting a resume to someone without showing the city, without showing their actual street address. And so that's kind of a nice privacy element. And also, even for adults, many employers nowadays aren't necessarily worried about the street. They'd like to know the city and the state. Let's show you a sample page of entering their experiences. They can enter as many experiences as they can think of. Oops, I think let's see. So there's a little bit of information about, oh, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about the app, but there is actually a little bit of a help information for them to tell them that what this is about is any kind of experience they've had, whether it's paid employment, chores at home, volunteering in the community, any of that can be used as work experience for a resume. Again, employers are going to know that a high school student applying for a job likely may not have a lot of formal paid work experience, but may have other kinds of experiences that apply. And actually, you can see on this page where they enter in whatever the job title or the role was. There's a good example of usually on a resume, you wouldn't include a supervisor's name for a prior job or a supervisor's phone number, but those are helpful on a master job application when you're asked to give a reference for a future past employer. Then they can get down to this last page where they can choose from one of three styles of a resume. The site creates a resume for them with all of the information they enter in. It offers 1, 2, or 3 styles. They can then preview what that resume looks like. They can download it as a PDF, or they can publish it online, since many employers nowadays aren't looking for a hard copy resume. They're looking for a resume that's been posted online. Students will have a personalized link that the site provides. And there's a little pencil here as a signifier of editing. So when I set up this site and created a resume, the default was just a series of random numbers, but I was able to personalize this link. I can actually post several resumes by changing this link. And publishing means they're available online. Unpublishing means they're not available online. This, and I see folks in the waiting room again, that's the one. This site, the way it's programmed, it does not have the capacity for a young person to download a Word version. The way the site is set up, it is going to create a PDF version of the resume for them, which they can either download again as a PDF or publish. And then you can see here also there's they can look at their master job application, and this would be where they would go if they're actually filling out an application to see what all, to remind them of all of the past background that they'd want to or be asked for in an application. So our recommendation here for getting started on using the site would be simply to have a student set up, I think helpful as with the Career Center, set up an online account and a mobile app account so they can kind of play with them, and just have them work through and set up a resume, maybe beginning with at least a minimum amount of information or as much as they can think of, and then create this resume and share that with you and have that resume available to them. So that's my stuff, Job Central. Esteban, any questions about Job Central?
Right now, I don't see any questions on job. Oh, wait, sorry. There's the website is fantastic and has so much information on it. So thank you for all their hard work. Is there a suggestion pacing guide for high school counselors to use? So a suggested pacing guide.
Not right now. We get so involved in making the tools sometimes. So I'm writing down pacing guide. That would be get ourselves, as with you all, we're not running in so many directions with young people, but we're still running in a lot of directions. So we do not currently have a pacing guide or in the lesson plan that we developed prior. Gosh, I really don't remember. We had a lesson. We have a lesson plan related to creating a resume, and I think we added some references to the lesson about Job Central Resume Creator, and actually in the Find and Get a Right Job guide on our home site, there's notes, some prompts for young people for just creating a resume in general. So there are some tools, but no, I think we could create a better pacing guide. And so that's written down and on my list now. Okay.
Cool. That's all I see right now.
Good. So our most commonly used and well-known resume is the resume. A well-known website is the California Career Zone. The Career Zone does have a formal educator account as well as the student account. This site, as with everything else, is completely free for educators to make use of. The challenge for many of you will be if you want to set up an educator account and track the activity of your young people, every educator is limited to 50 student users. And the reason for that is just because of our own capacity to support the site with the developers we work with. And we just don't have the resources available to make it completely wide open to as many students as possible. So again, we understand that's a complication, because we certainly know that school counselors are working with more than 50 students. But that is a way you can at least work with a group of your students. And maybe if you're cycling through students, you can add and subtract students to your educator account over time. So it's not limited to 50 forever of the same students. You can, as I say, add and subtract students. And if you delete a student's connection to you, that does not impact their account. So they set up an account that's completely separate from yours, but they can give you access to see the work they're doing. So the primary elements of setting up a student account, or an account. So to set up an account, it's on the home page, and I'm logged in. There's just an option that says register now. So when a student sets up an account, the account is immediately active and available. And I've already mentioned, we will never shut down that account for the student. The student can keep it as long as they want. They can keep it well into adulthood. In fact, any of you educators out there, rethinking your career choices, you're welcome to use it. Hopefully, no, we need you all, so don't go anywhere. But the account is immediately active. What will happen if an educator sets up an account? That initial interface looks the same, but in setting up your profile, it'll ask who you are, if you're a student, counselor, teacher. And so if you indicate counselor, teacher, then we'll know that you might be interested in an educator account. It's helpful. If you use a school domain, it's an open access site. We really just are trying to support the California educators. And so if you use a school domain that we can associate with California, that's very helpful. And then when you set up that account as an educator, you'll get a prompt wondering if you want an educator account. And what you can do on the educator account, if your need is to track something more than 50 students, there's a text box. You can include a message. And I can tell you, you won't be able to track 650 students or 250. But if you're, between 50 and 100, you can submit that and see. And that's actually the developers who run the site and track all of the space available, and the databases. They're the ones who can kind of look at that and decide how that works. So once you set up your educator account, what you're going to see is that we, I think it was just last year, added a series of professional development modules to walk you through all of the elements of using the site with students. Actually, you can see here, I'm not doing very good so far on my doing the modules, but basically the idea here is that they're brief text-based modules that help you understand what all of the assessments are about, the budgeting tool, the educator account, how to get all that engaged and used with students. So even if you're not needing another educator account to track student work, I'd recommend an educator account because it does give you that option, but also it provides these professional development modules that can help you make the most effective use of the site with young people. Within this, and actually the John's Stuff account page looks just the same for the student. As with the educator, a student who clicks on I want to has access to most of the elements and features of the site in terms of the assessments, keeping a journal, creating a resume, doing a job search. What a student would not see, where an educator sees this option to manage either students or assigning lessons, the student would see all of the options that are located under Do for taking assessments or doing other work within the site. The other element for an educator is up here at the top. If you do decide to set it up and actively work with students, the Educator Code is your unique code. So you would provide this 6-letter code to a student. When a student logs into their account, they would see a box on the screen that says, enter your educator's code here. And so they would enter that code in and then be linked to your account. So that's how easy it is to set up an account. You also can assign accounts and do a batch upload if you want to assign students usernames and passwords. So it is possible to do a group or just to do this one at a time. You'll have a count of how many students you're interacting with. You can look at users to create reports. You can look at individual users to see what they're doing in the site, and group, see what the group is looking at, maybe in terms of occupations or post-secondary options, and then you can create lessons. So again, that's all what it looks like within an educator account. A student would see very much the same landing page. They'd see Discover Possibilities, which is a link to our assessments and budgeting activity. They'd see Explore Industry Sectors, where this site has all of the owned occupations organized under California's industry sectors and pathways. And very importantly, the third primary option says My Summary Report. So if you want to understand what a student is doing within the site, they would click on My Summary Report. This is assuming you didn't set up the student account or the interactive account. A student can go in, choose their summary report, and then create a PDF that they can share with you to show you their assessment results, show you the top career clusters they've been looking at, occupations that match their assessments. And actually, I'm going to give you a little overview, so we'll be able to come back and take a better look at this in a moment. So that's a way to share what's going on in the site. So what I want to do now, because my recommendation for you and engaging students in the site is to begin with two really simple things. So one is kick it off by creating a budget. This is asking students to think about a lifestyle budget. They can choose from any county in the state of California, and they can create, sometimes, of course, when I'm doing this online, it slows down. So I'm going to go very quickly through this, but again, you can go in, really easy to set up an account and explore it, so more at your leisure. But a student would go through and make choices. So this idea of renting an apartment as when they begin their professional adult work life, they can anticipate working in an apartment. All of the expenses in the site are drawn from a number of sources. I think the apartment, I believe used to be anyway, a HUD based site that has apartment costs. Zillow has housing costs, and there's other various annual census resources from the feds that we pull from. But maybe you're already doing something with a young person around costs, and so they can actually enter their own costs. We ask them to think about utilities that they would need, and this provides you the opportunity to talk with them about what might be required. That electricity might not be optional, so they have to choose that, and just walk them through the site. Then ask them to think about, what's their food, what do they think their food option is going to be? Do they anticipate mostly cooking at home or being out a lot? Then entertainment wise, are they going to be home or get out and really, well, gosh, this one really doesn't fit right now. So I don't go out often. I usually just watch a TV. So there is kind of pre-thinking, I guess. We knew COVID was coming, but they still need many work clothes. Even in the world of Zoom, there's still some appropriate work attire. And they still may need a car to get around when they are able to go out. They may, hopefully, they may have a job that provides health insurance, or they may need to figure out a way to pay for it themselves. They, they may need to pay for some kind of post-secondary education and training. We want them to think about how much of this they're taking in could they save. And then the site creates this budget for them. with both a pie chart as well as the columns. It adds taxes in. They can add in other things such as buy a motorcycle or pets. And then this gives them a total, and then they can view occupations that are related to wanting to achieve that lifestyle. So you can see here, it didn't have a very huge budget. So there's I think there's currently, last time I looked, there are 967 occupations. So 604 of those paid at least this $42,000. As you're working with them on the budget, you can certainly help them make choices that are realistic. It's pretty easy to create a higher budget if you think that's more realistic for your county. So that's really the easy way to get engaged in beginning by creating that budget. Then would encourage you to have them create take the interest profiler. And so we go back to the Career Hub, which is their account. You ask them to create the interest profiler. I'm gonna walk through this. You can see, again, it's very easy. They're just gonna be given a series of 30 prompts. This is an assessment from the assessment creators at the Federal Department of Labor, ONET. And so they're asked just to walk through 30 prompts around whether they would hate it or kind of like it or kind of not like it or neutral. Really encourage you to find ways to have them think about not using neutral, because the more positives and negatives that they give, then the more like them it's going to represent. And so have them really think through what the options are and whether it's something they would hate, kind of not like, or like, or really like. So you can see, I mean, it would take them obviously a bit longer to think through. I'm just zipping through this to give you a sense of what it's all about. And there is a quick assessment, but it doesn't really have any validity or reliability. It's just a quick way to jump into the system. So really do recommend beginning with this 30 prompt interest profiler that gets them thinking, that really does have reliability and validity based on the work that the ONET folks have done at the federal level. Okay, we've made it. So once they're done, then they hit this summarize. So it tells them what their Holland interest areas are, and then they can see occupations that relate to that. So you can see, even just within this very quick time, that it's pretty quick and easy way to both get an idea of what occupations match my interests, but then also, we did a assessment earlier where we came up with some money. And of course, it always happens when I'm doing a workshop that normally what happens when I check this elsewhere, I don't think it likes my surface. Normally, a student would see a little piggy bank by all of the occupations that both, in this case, match their interests as well as pay the lifestyle that they're interested in. Oh, for some reason it's not. Huh, interesting. So right here, you can see I've actually have the cursor over the invisible piggy bank, and it tells the student that this is an occupation that matches their interests and their budget goal. Okay, so that's a very quick run through the career zone. I want to show you, I mentioned earlier that they could submit the summary report, and noticed, hopefully when I first did it, I didn't have any interest profile or score. I didn't have a list of occupations that matched my interest profiler. I could also do an assessment around work values and skills. And then if I scroll down, I can also find my budget that I've created. So this report is something that they can choose the elements to include, and then share that with you. So again, my final reminder, and then we'll see if there's some questions, comments. I invite you to sign up for my email list because as we update resources or add new resources, I send notes out so that you're always up to speed with what we're up to. And you can either do that by going to our the About Us section on our home site, or you can feel free to email me at right here. It says jmerris@cde.ca.gov. It just asks to be put on the list, and I can do that. So I think actually, kind of miraculously, I left a little time in case there's some questions. So if there's anything, Esteban, let me know that needs some clarification to take advantage of this time.
Thank you, John. I don't see any updated questions in the Whova app, the Q&A. I just sent a message letting everybody know to please submit your questions through there. This session has been recorded, and any resources will be uploaded into the Whova platform as well.
Right, and I think in Whova you'll see a link to the previously recorded. There's about a 20-minute version of this overview using PowerPoint to capture the key elements. There's a one-page resource overview as kind of a reminder of what we possess and links to get to it. And then also there's a version of the PowerPoint that I used for that pre-recorded video, but it's a longer PowerPoint with screenshots to follow up on what we've walked through today with the same kind of ideas about how to get started and where to get engaged in using all of our resources. Again, feel free either to email me to get added to the list, or if you have follow-up questions, you can either correspond by email, or if you email, we can set up a call and chat if there's any way we can be of help. One question that does come up sometimes, and it can be a smidge confusing. For the Career Zone, we do provide this absolutely free all the time, anytime, to you and your students. There are some limitations since it's a statewide site. So the developers behind the site, these folks at Headed To, you can choose to purchase a local subscription for your district, which would allow you to pay by the student and allows an unlimited number of educators to interact on the site with the students. You can use, if you're a Google district, you can use that single sign-in to set up accounts and just incorporate it into your system. It'll interact with student information systems, so all of your students can be engaged. If you want a little more information about that, if you just start with this Educator's Corner that will be in your Educator account, you'll see that there's a link to oh gosh, this is a good reminder. So there's actually, so once you've set up your Educator account, click on that Educator corner, and they're actually, and this is kind of a newer feature, a district can choose to pay for an account, or an individual educator can set up an account to manage up to 175 students. And I confess, since this is a new feature, I really don't remember the $89, the cost behind it. So there's information, and the folks we work with at Headed To are very flexible in working with districts. So if you were thinking that some kind of a little more robust account would be helpful to you, then you're welcome to either begin with me or talk with the Headed To folks. So maybe I created questions there. Esteban, or you said somebody needed to move her question into the Whova.
Yeah, I made a comment to send everybody in the chat to submit them through Whova, but yeah, I've only seen those two questions from earlier, which we already went over.
Okay. Well, I appreciate deeply the work you all are doing, especially, I know my office work is complicated. I have no students that I need to keep track of and care for. And I do have a son who's a special education resource teacher, so I do get regular updates about his challenges in connecting with students. And so as I say, deeply appreciate what you're doing. Hopefully, these are resources that adapt well to either in class or distance learning or hybrid situations. And if there's anything that we can do to be even more helpful, we're always open to questions, ideas, suggestions. We can't always do everything that people would like us to do, but we try. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us if we can be helpful. And we do find sometimes there's little glitches. So also appreciate knowing if you're using something, we can usually fix things pretty quickly.
So we do have a question, John, regarding the single sign-in uses. What platform does the single sign-in use? Is it
So
Classly?
that's the one that's the paid resource for the career zone. Again, to provide this free statewide resource, don't have the capacity to link with individual districts. So all you've seen is just generally available. If you set up a district subscription, then Google and other services, they set it up for you so that your students and educators can just use your district Google as a single sign-in. And again, if you go to this Educator's Corner, there's more information about those accounts.
And the $89, those are yearly fees, right?
Right. So that one is the premium educator account. And, you know, they've taken off, so you can start there. And I confess, I have to ask them. I don't see a link to their district-wide account. So one option is the individual educator account.
Another question is, are there any additional resources you personally recommend we look into? Or them being teachers or counselors?
Well, we've got a small number of things back on our home site where we started. We try to identify publicly created, freely available tools and resources. And so as we find those things, we put them on our homepage in this related resources. Now, many of you may already be using California colleges, and you know it's more of a hybrid. It used to be completely free. Now, much of the content is available only by an account, unless you're an area where they've cut a deal with the state colleges. So that's a little bit more of a hybrid, but the rest of these are just free resources for you to make use of with your students.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Well, as we're wrapping up here on time, one of the things they asked us if you guys be willing, we'd like to do turn on your cameras, do a screenshot of everybody, take a couple shots if you guys are willing to do that. Thank you, John, for your presentation. This session, like we mentioned, it was recorded and it should be uploaded in the Whova platform pretty soon here.
Should I stop sharing so you have a better?
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, you're fine. Thank you, everybody.
A lot of shy people.
That's big smile. That's okay. That's okay.
I appreciate everyone.
Yeah.
Joining in.
Thank you, everybody. Awesome. Perfect. Thank you.
Well, I hope the rest of the conference is great for all of you. I know I miss being able to wander down the hall or hang out and chat after the workshop, amongst many other things that I miss. But again, best of thoughts with you all. Keep up the great work. Let us know of ways that we can help. And thank you, Esteban, for getting me through this.
Perfect. All right. Have a good day, everybody.